Entonces, hello everyone, welcome to this English episode. As you know, my name is Gabby, and today we have a special guest from Venezuela, and now he's currently living in Madrid, which is Eduardo Gabotti. Thank you so much for being here today with me.
Thank you so much, Gabby. I'm temporarily in Madrid, but I'm based in London, actually.
Oh, in what part of London?
Well, Wimbledon.
Oh, okay, wonderful. There are many people from the English episode that are subscribed there. And actually, it's really interesting to know that you're from now in Europe, and now that we can speak more in detail how the global economy, well, specifically in Venezuela, is working right now.
Sure.
So tell me about your trip. The last episode that I made, if some of you that are listening and didn't pay attention to the last episode, I would love you to listen to the last episode where I visited Venezuela. And today, Eduardo is going to be speaking about how was his experience in the capital, which is completely different to regarding my experience. So I would love to hear from him.
Yes. Well, I visited for a very short time, actually, and less than I would have liked to be there for family reasons. And the first thing was how difficult it is for someone that wants to go to Venezuela from the UK or Europe to actually get there. There are many prohibitions now, and they are the government is alleging that it's because of the coronavirus situation, the Delta variant, and how it's affecting and how they are protecting themselves from it. But effectively, we know that the story goes differently because it's mostly due to political reasons. They are only accepting flights from 6 countries. So initially, I had a flight London, Madrid, and then Madrid, Caracas directly. I had to change that and request for a refund for that ticket. And then there was only one airline that supposedly was flying from Madrid to Caracas on the permission of basically like an emergency situation for people that needed to be in Venezuela for whatever reason. And that flight got canceled as well. So then I had to find an alternative route via Dominican Republic. So I went London, Madrid, Santo Domingo, and Caracas. So I had to stay a few days. Just trying to connect in the flights was a bit of a mess. Also to not be knackered when I finally arrived in Venezuela. So and when I finally got there, it was a bit of a. It's always a mix of emotions because it's where I was born and it's where I grew up. Yet it's every year I get a chance to go. It's completely different. It's changed a little bit. So yes, they had good measures at the airport to kind of assess whether the passengers that were coming in had all the requirements in terms of safety measures for COVID. That was all right. Then you got to meet whoever was going to pick you up at the airport. Outside of the airport, no one is allowed in. And then the journey to Caracas from the airport, for those who don't know, even though they say that you land in Caracas, you don't land in Caracas. You land in this town that's called La Guaira, and it's about 45 minutes by car between Caracas and that. And then it was interesting because it was pitch dark. There was almost no electricity in the motorway, in the highway, and you know it's a free market for those who drive, because you can do pretty much whatever you want, like people switching lanes inside the tunnels. Like there was at one point it's going like uphill towards the last tunnel before you enter the city, and there was this gap between the lanes that were coming down and we were coming up, and this passenger bus just comes full speed on the other side and just makes a U-turn in the motorway in front of us. And it was like, whoa, if this bus flips and basically, you know, crushes us, that's it.
And it happened. Really? Actually, when I arrived from the border, actually that day I saw 7 people killed.
Oh,
But
Go on.
it was not because of the danger that Venezuela didn't know how to drive. It's because people are not investing in their cars. So they're having
Yeah,
accidents in the roads. So I seriously, when I saw that, it was the same impression, but mine was the road was really dangerous because it's
it
between
is.
the valleys, between the Venezuela and the mountains of Los Andes.
Yeah,
And when I saw that people die, it was seriously just the main reason was because people are not investing to fix their car. They are not investing in the wheels, in their machines, in anything.
yeah, yeah. It is interesting, and as you say, the first shock was not just the the freedom that people has to drive in the way they want. That's rather common because there's pretty much no law in this aspect, and it's almost like a voluntary arrangement between people. Everyone knows when to move, when not to move.
Exactly. There's no warranty of your life since you are right.
Yeah, exactly. But on the other hand, the second shock was the infrastructure. So as you said, the roads, the quality of the pavement, or you see the facades of the buildings, signs, lights. I mean, it was like 8 p.m. and it was pitch black, and you would see many buildings with no electricity whatsoever. Yet I started to see, the more I got into Caracas, I started to see some things. At least they were doing some developments in the main motorway, like to separate the lanes. They were planting some palm trees, and that was kind of nice. And there were some tiny lights, the glowing lights in the pavement. I don't know the name in English to that. It's like the cat eye. Those that kind of like blink in the dark.
Mhm.
To replace the actual electricity that should be in the lampposts.
Wow.
And then you started seeing, when I got to where my mother lives. She lives in a relatively good and safe neighborhood, close to one of the main green spaces called the Parque del Este, like the East Park. And that's you started seeing, like, people with fancy cars and the SUVs with a protection, for like bulletproof windows. And
Exactly. It's something that it's really interesting when you arrive in Venezuela, you don't feel like familiarized what's happening with these cars where are coming, that there are still new cars, new branding cars. For me, it was also shocking.
yeah,
When I was visiting this part that is a small city, which is San Cristobal, I
yeah,
saw many cars, really new cars, including a Ferrari.
wow, which is, again, is it's just a sign of how weird everything is, because, and I can imagine, if anyone is listening to this and trying to imagine it from the perspective of someone that lives in a so-called first world country, you name it, US, Canada, Europe, or even some other places in Latin America, they probably don't get it. They're just like, okay, what's wrong with having a Ferrari? I mean, if they can afford it. But yes, it's difficult because, again, the economy is one of the first signs of Venezuela and Latin America in general is the inequality. So whoever has just way too much, and whoever does not have is like struggling.
Exactly.
And I can't imagine how it is in those regions where you visited, because, to be honest, I'm such a, like in Venezuela, I've always been a city boy. I almost never traveled to the countryside, or the other regions, except like 1-2 cities on holidays, and that's it. I've always moved in Caracas.
Eduardo, let me ask you something. When you were in Caracas, did you see apartments and houses that they were selling this in Parque del Este, which is a really good neighbor? How much does it cost now to have a new apartment or just to have a new property?
I asked the people, because like I said, you could see in the evenings how almost no lights were switching on, and it's not because of lack of electricity. It's just because in that neighborhood, most apartments are abandoned, as in the owners left the country, and they kept the apartments because of either they are hoping to come back at some point when things are like fixed, everything is back to whatever they have in their heads, or it's a matter of that they just simply don't want to come back, but don't want to give their flat or their apartment like for so cheap. A year ago, you could buy a flat in that area in around $25,000. Now, because of the kind of, let's call it a boom, and with the dollarization, the asking price is about 100, 120 for a 2-bed flat with two bathrooms, relatively nice apartment. And then there are people, of course, that are asking much more. But the reality is that it's very difficult to make a sell because of many considerations. So everyone would like to sell their apartment to an ambassador, to a diplomat, because they know the money is safe. They know that they are reliable and they would pay, but there are not so many diplomats and ambassadors that would buy in Caracas. So you have to think twice if you're going to receive 100K from someone that maybe you don't know where they got their money from.
Exactly.
If your bank is going to be happy with that.
And it's interesting that now people in Venezuela, they have just the knowledge, even if someone has dollars, in the part where it was, they don't care where it was, because normally the narco traffic is really correlated to this zone.
Yes.
So even people there, I was in a supermarket, I was even visiting one of my friends, and there was a woman who opened her bag, and it was just $100 just for cash. It was between 30,000 or 40,000 just in cash with her.
Yeah,
I've never seen a lot of money in cash in my life, like I watch in Venezuela, or I've seen in Venezuela, and how people feel comfortable now carrying on that bags with them and without having any issue with that. But how can they feel that secure? Where is that money coming from?
yeah. Well, that's why it's different. The people or whoever is selling a flat from abroad that would have those considerations, because they cannot afford their banks closing their accounts, because they make their living outside of Venezuela, so they have to at least stay within the boundaries. But inside Venezuela, the story is completely different. I was actually going into Las Mercedes, which is like the night hotspot in Caracas. But I was on daylight, and I was with this lady that she was showing me the new buildings. It's like, look how pretty this new building is. It's very tall with glass, whatever, blue glass, and it looks so nice from the motorway or from the distance. And I was like, well, this is clearly some money laundering going on, because these towers, these massive buildings are completely empty. And some of them are already on sale, like the whole building says for sale. And it's a newly built thing. So you would wonder, like, okay, where's this money come from? But some people are like, you know what, I don't care. It makes the city look good. And to your point about the cash, some people are, let's not say turning a blind eye, but they say, look, we've been so terrified and terrorized for the past, I don't know, 10 years or whatnot. I want to live. I want to enjoy. I want to be able to afford things, and everyone knows almost instinctively that the only way to do that is by getting dollars. That doesn't mean that people are going to do criminal activity to get them. People in the back of their heads, they know that there's something going on, as in how all this money started circulating. But if they are doing an honest job, let's say if I'm a plumber or I am a dentist or a psychologist and I charge by the hour and people pay me in cash, then all of a sudden, and a friend of mine actually was telling me, like, look, I've never had so much cash inside my wallet, not even when I traveled. Because when as a Venezuelan, when you traveled in the past, not so long ago, the government allowed you to buy $500 in cash at a preferential rate. And you would go and you would feel that you were having a lot of money because you had $500 to spend in whatever the duration of your trip. Now it's like some people, they work how many hours a week, and they have their wallets like full of cash. I saw elderly people, like you said, like with this, their hands full of dollars, buying groceries, and it's like, whoa, I mean, where do they get it from? Obviously it's from work. Like last year I had the opportunity to be there before the pandemic, and it was still a little bit like under the radar. You couldn't speak openly that you had dollars, and you would try and pay in local currency, even though in some places everyone wanted to pay in USD, either via Zelle or in cash. But now it's like it's everywhere, and it's normal. Even prices are quoted in dollars. But I have to say that I moved only in what's known as the bubble. I didn't go to the corners of the city where things are still a little bit or could be a little bit different, and that's an important distinction, because a lot of people on Twitter went like, okay, well, that's not the reality, because if you go to the slums or wherever, you'll find things that are still complicated.
And that's the thing, how fast Venezuelan people took this adoption in less than a year during the pandemic situation. They improvised the way how they use their money, how they use different currencies. Because, for example, in Merida, which are other states in Venezuela, or in San Cristobal, they have limits. Let's say in this zone, we're going to be receiving Colombian pesos. In this zone, we're going to be receiving dollars. In this zone, we're going to be receiving euros. But it was a mass adoption in less than a year that I'm really shocked by the circumstances, how they took that. And I'm really amazed how fast it was. That's why I think even the Bitcoin world is going to be taking place in less than 2 years. Or what do you think about this? Well, because it was so fast because of the needs of people.
See, I don't know. I was surprised to see that in one of the main supermarket chains, they accept crypto. They accept payment in Bitcoin and probably in other cryptocurrencies. But I don't think is generalized. I think ultimately Venezuelans have always been trained to work with exchange rates and to make calculations, and they've always known that the only way to save was in a hard currency like the US dollar. Now, to make the transition to say, well, there is actually a harder currency than the US dollar, which could be Bitcoin in this case, I'm not sure if they are ready to make that jump yet, because ultimately everything is being used as means to an end. As in, Bitcoin, the adoption in Venezuela, I believe it has served to get hold of dollars. It's not, people are not saving in Bitcoin. Yes, there are people who have done really well because they invested really early. They started mining or whatnot since 2012. There are a few crypto millionaires in Venezuela. Of course, they cannot say it openly, and they probably stay very low key. There are other people that are getting paid in Bitcoin for what they do, obviously pegged to the US dollar, so their salary or their income is denominated in dollars, but they then make the conversion into Bitcoin and they pay in their wallets. But I don't know, 2 years to make a full transition into most of the people saying, you know what, the Bitcoin is harder than the dollar. It protects my money much better, and I can also make transactions with it. I still don't see it happening, and it's really interesting because in the rest of the world, cash is disappearing. So I'm in Madrid and I haven't spent a single banknote or coin. I pay everywhere with my card. In London, the same. I almost never use cash at all. I only pay with my card. I tap into the store, and that's it. And I pay, or I make a transfer when I have to, buy online. That's it. So cash is disappearing, and there is an incentive in the world to make cash disappear. But in Venezuela, it's different. So people have a really high preference for cash, to the point that for instance, if you're going to pay in some restaurants or some shops with your debit or credit card, international debit or credit card, they add a markup up to 8% of what you're paying, because you're paying with a card. Why? Because the point of sale, the bank is for processing that payment, are charging them something, and then they are not stupid. They say, okay, if I'm getting charged, not only am I going to pass it to the client, but I am also going to add something for me. And because you don't have the cash at the moment, you say, well, what the hell, I need to pay. So here you go. You have to understand 8% in a transaction. It's like there are people who don't make that money in their portfolios in a year. So whereas cash has a really high preference, it's a difficulty to find the low denominations in the currency, like $1 bills or $5 bills are highly appreciated. And so it's kind of like reverse to the rest of the world, where everyone is stopping to dealing with cash. In Venezuela, people are utilizing a lot of cash. It gives them like the comfort of, it's tangible, I have it, and not only I have it, I finally have it, and they want to use it. So it's in 2 years, I think it probably is. I may be wrong, and probably, hopefully I am, but I don't know, time flies, and 2 years is like a short
No,
term.
and you're right, because if we speak about also the adoption of the internet, that, well, the new kind of adoption that Venezuela is having, because the only red that we used to have was AVA, CanTV, which was the only company for Venezuela. But now there are new satellites there that are coming just for $8. You can get access to the full internet, having Wi-Fi. And was shocking for me. And I said, okay, this is going to be a huge possibility, that now in less than 1 year, there are going to be more transactions than using cash, because that's what they were needing the access to the internet, because that's fundamental. And in a country like Venezuela, this is unstable.
Well, you are absolutely right, but internet for me was a pain. I couldn't access internet frequently. I had to book the business center of a hotel to try and do some work from there, because people are utilizing these devices like a portable Wi-Fi, which is a joke, because it connects. It's like using your phone as a hotspot, and it gives you a connectivity that is not reliable. It's not fast. It doesn't support. I couldn't, for instance, I am also recording some things on Zoom, and I then need to upload into a website. I could never upload it. I only uploaded it when I go back to Madrid. It was impossible. So in general, like public services, and that's kind of like forgive me if I deviate a little bit from the topic, but my impression of Venezuela was like, it's like when they speak of Mars, you know, that they are now with Elon Musk and all that, they are trying to find ways to colonize Mars, and it's impossible to live there unless you set up a base whereby inside the base you have your plants, you have your food, you have your sources of water, and everything is like contained. But if you go out of the base, you cannot breathe, you cannot do anything. So it's an exaggeration, of course, but it's to prove a point. That's kind of like the feeling in Venezuela, because people inside their homes, yes, they have their water tanks, they have their electricity plants to cover their basic needs, they have basic internet with these devices. But the minute you go out, there's no water, the electricity is failing, internet is not reliable, the connectivity with the mobile phones is not that great. This thing of the satellites, at least in Caracas, they are charging it like at $40 a month, and that's more than what I pay for internet in London.
Wow.
And I don't even know how reliable that is. So for instance, I wanted to kind of give that possibility to my mother and say, look, because I struggle to communicate with her, so I call her directly on her home phone. But if I want to have a video call with her, it's impossible. So okay, let's set up an internet connection for you. But then you do get the pinch, like, am I going to pay for an internet in Venezuela the same or even more than what I'm paying in London? Is that actually, is that right? I feel that at some point Venezuelans have to learn how to say, no, I won't buy it. It's too expensive, and push providers and suppliers that in that they cannot charge whatever they want, because if not, things are gonna keep going exponentially in dollars, and that's not that's
And
not good for the people.
exactly. And it's interesting that your experience was completely different, because actually, even if all the costs are higher there in Venezuela, even in other developed countries, it's not that much. So when I was there, even the connection of the internet was really good, and I saw that Colombia was the main country that is providing all the services to this small part of Venezuela, this region.
Wow.
And actually, the internet connection was satellite, everything was faster. But the problem that the services, like if you went to a restaurant, you went to a supermarket, everything was higher than the prices in Colombia. And I got
Yeah.
shocked by that,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm currently here, and just comparing that a country that has this hyperinflation problem that costs more, it's unreal. It's unbelievable for me.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. I didn't know. And it also speaks about how both from the let's say supply side, uh, Colombian companies are taking the opportunity to fill that market, and then the people in the border, or in the neighboring towns like San Cristobal, they can benefit from it. That is really interesting. But in Caracas, that it is the capital city, is where everything's supposed to be great. I'm doing at the moment a course. I am facilitating a course every Thursday, and the first day of that course started when I was in Caracas. And I went to the offices of this company, which is like the owner of the platform. They allowed me to use their offices because, again, of the internet. Well, internet failed 2 times, and it was going right in terms of the speed, but then the connectivity dropped. I had to use the hotspot, sorry, from the phone, and it's like, well, this is a joke. And they were like, oh, this almost never happens. Well, it happened to me. So I don't know if I jinxed it, if it was me that brought like the black cloud from London, the rainy day, but it did happen. So I didn't feel that in terms of infrastructure it's like this distinction between what's private goods and what's public goods. Uh, Public goods that are supposed to be provided by governments are inexistent, or at least are very, very precarious. They're not. There's not good quality, and almost no one cares about that. So people are finding ways to privately solve their problem. Like I said, like the base in Mars. So they try to build their homes in a way that they are shielded from that adversity. And of course, if you have all of that, then you feel, well, Caracas is great. You can live there. You can, it's probably one of the best places to live, because great weather, friendly people, good food. If you have your car, a beauty. Oh my God, it's and not just the beauty, is the charisma of people in general. Because one of the greatest surprises was, last year people were very depressed because of the situation. So I think like the bottom of the crisis for Venezuela was probably, well, you can never call a bottom. One of the lessons is that you can always be worse. But one of the recent bottoms, or let's say recent lows, was 2017 to 2019, and I was there the two times. So in 2017 I was there, and then on 2019 again. And people were depressed. You would see lines of people queuing to buy subsidized food, searching in the rubbish, in the garbage for food. That was depressing. Children, women, and people were quite aggressive and skinny, and it was not a good place to be in. Now it's like when you're feeling drowned, and then all of a sudden you go to the surface and you can breathe. That's the impression I get of people. And then people are making an effort to always give you a smile when they provide a service, albeit sometimes people are too busy with their mobiles instead of paying a good service. But I guess that's also generational in some cases. But women that I met, always like with that good charisma, they make, the Venezuelan women is always someone that makes an effort to look good and to be friendly. people in general providing a service. I use this, let's say, local Uber, which was
Me too.
I was so surprised. I
Was
mean,
surprised as well. I was shocked by that.
and it was like a VIP service, because not only, you know, I'm not a regular user of Uber in London, but sometimes I do, and you just book it through the phone. You don't hear from the guy because the app does everything. It tells you when the guy is there. You get in, you open the door, you sit down, you don't say a word with the guy. Like,
Yes,
absolutely, you get to your destination and then you rank the guy 5 stars.
exactly. It was perfect. It was also my case that I got shocked that now the small details of customer service are just applying there. It's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Now in this one, you book the thing and immediately they give you a phone call, and it's like it's not like, hi, I'm your driver. It's like, hi, good evening, how are you? I am going to be your driver tonight. Can you please confirm the address where you're going, just to make sure that we don't get it wrong? It's like, wow, I'll be there, and they keep you posted. And when they get there, once they take you to a destination, they, you know, cars in perfect conditions, your AC, leather seats, everything. And when you get to the destination, I'm going to wait here until you enter through the door. And it's like, oh my God, that's wow, I feel like an important person. It's just like, and it's amazing. It really is. So that charisma that you get in not only in Venezuela, in many places in Latin America, is the same. Whereas in the rest of the world tends to be like more cold and like, okay, yeah, I'm giving you a service, but that's it. It's like, you could be Gabi or you could be Eduardo. It doesn't make a difference.
Mhm.
Here it was actually very pleasing.
Exactly. That's what makes us special. Eduardo, I would love to know, to conclude this beautiful podcast, and also that also all our subscribers can follow us. You can also give us your Twitter. But before that, tell me your conclusion about this. What do you think? What do you expect that Venezuela could happen? What do you think about this?
It's still an open question. I thank you for asking that, because I think that what triggered this discussion between you and me, or this chat, was that I posted my impressions on Twitter in Spanish, and a lot of people found it interesting. Others, not everyone liked it, but anyway. And the open question is this smoke and mirrors, or is this is this the beginning of the recovery of the Venezuelan society? I think there are two things to consider here. First, that the absence of politics was remarkable. Like, no one spoke about politics during my trip. No one cared about the president or the interim president or the assembly or the whatever, or the party XYZ. No one. There were no political signs. There were no political graffitis. I didn't even hear politics in the news. So people said, like, you know what, I got enough. I'm done with it. So I need to get on with my life, and the only way to get on with the life is finding dollars and spending and you know, breathing and being happy. But the problem is that, as you rightly pointed out, the source of all these dollars is we know that is not legal activity. It's not. Most of it comes from illicit activities and huge quantities of money laundering. But the question is, does the world really care? I don't think that the world cares about Venezuela or any country in particular until it becomes a problem for them. So long as the Venezuelan government or whoever, you know, pays their bills and attention to what's happening on a geopolitical level, and honors their commitment towards their stakeholders internationally, they are not going to be a problem. But you know, there's the case like of Libya. Gaddafi was there for like 20 years or 30 years being a dictator, and no one cared about them until they did. And then all of a sudden things changed, and they invaded, and they toppled them, and they killed him, and whatnot. I'm not saying this is going to happen in Venezuela. I hope it doesn't. I hope it never does. Because I don't think it's the right way to solve problems. Actually, if you see Libya now, it's not like in the best shape. but if internationally someone or something happens that they care about this problem with the money laundering in Venezuela, then this thing can become like a very almost like a dream, and then the reality when they wake up is going to be really harsh, because they may find themselves like not finding any more dollars available, because Venezuela, they don't produce dollars. The dollars come from somewhere, and they are circulating, and they are exchanging between hands between who buys a service and who provides that service. But producers, as in, there's no dollar production there, because we cannot be completely dollarized. So it's still an open question, as in, is this how long is this recovery going to last? The more it lasts, the better the population will feel, which is a paradox, because again, you're having something starting from a not so good situation where most dollars come from the narco traffic, yet people are kind of like enjoying finally a space to breathe and the recovery and whatnot. So it's difficult. So unless there is something to formalize the situation and clean up the act, and it could well be that it's going to be smoke and mirrors, and then the reality is going to be really, really tough.
That's right. Well, Eduardo, thank you so much for having this space, and thank you so much for giving me your thoughts about it. It was an open question, because this is an open subject that it doesn't have an end, because it's really extend. And I would love to know what is your Twitter, because I'm pretty sure that people wants to follow you because you speak both languages. So I'm pretty sure they want to know more about you too.
Thank you so much. Well, they can find me on Twitter on my full name, so at Eduardo Gavotti. That's Gavotti, and that's it really. I do post a lot of, at least to me, funny stuff. It's not all seriousness about situation, but I also post some interesting stuff here and there.
Oh, well, we need to follow each other and, to support this community that is growing, and also that we're giving really useful information. So again, Eduardo, thank you so much. And thank you for all your support in this community. And thank you to everyone that was listening this podcast. So remember to subscribe also to this podcast, which is Gabi Vivas BTC. And I hope to listen to you again, Eduardo.
The pleasure's been mine, Gabi. Thank you so much.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.